One of the more notable things about Exodus is how alien it feels, which is ironic considering that all the life in the Centauri cluster originates from Earth. Now, we tend to think of sci-fi in terms of us versus them, humans versus the Klingons, or the Covenant, or the Turians. But in Exodus, there are no aliens. Not really. There is only us and time. You see, over the course of thousands upon thousands of years, humanity didn't just evolve. We fractured. We were twisted by genetic engineering, reshaped by harsh environments, and molded by the Celestials into tools. The result is a galaxy filled with creatures that look like monsters, but share our DNA. And those are called changelings. And today we're going to break down the most dangerous and fascinating variations of changelings that we know about so far. Because if you're going to survive in the cluster, you need to know what you're looking at before it eats you. Let's kick off with a group of changelings that you don't want to meet in a dark alley, or a lit alley for that matter. The Arkavir. These guys are actually classified as reptilian humanoids, and humanoid is doing a lot of heavy lifting there because the Arkavir are bioengineered to be the ultimate survivors. The lore describes them as the Enduring for good reason. Because while we humans are busy terraforming planets to make them comfortable for us, the Arkavir do the exact opposite. They don't change the planet, they change themselves. Their genetic code is about 100 times more complex than a human's, which allows their bodies to adapt to pretty much anything. We're talking temperatures from 300 degrees below zero to 300 above. Crushing pressure, acid, radiation, you name it. If you drop an Arkavir onto a hellscape planet, it doesn't die. Its cellular chemistry just shifts. It grows some new scales, and it gets back to work. And speaking of work, that is essentially their lot in life in the Centauri cluster. The Celestials, being the benevolent overlords that they are, and yes, that was sarcasm, use the Arkavir as disposable labor. They drop them onto planets that would melt a normal human in seconds, have them mine resources or build factories, and then sometimes they just leave them there, like discarded tools. And because the Arkavir have no pain receptors, yep, you heard that right, they literally cannot feel pain, they just keep going. But, and this is a big but, do not mistake their status as laborers for weakness. The lore mentions that Arkavir ships are practical, ugly, and incredibly radioactive. And this leads to one of the funniest yet terrifying concepts in Exodus. See, if an Arkavir ship enters your airspace, you might think, I'll just shoot it down. Don't do that. First off, their ships are leaking radiation like crazy, so you don't want that debris raining down on you. But more importantly, because the Arkavir are so incredibly difficult to kill, if you blow up their ship, they will likely survive the crash. So now, instead of a ship flying past you, you have essentially caused an unplanned invasion of radioactive changelings right in your backyard. And trust me, you do not want to get into a fight with these guys. They're described as being slow. Sure, they aren't going to be doing parkour like June Aslan, but if they get their hands on you, it's over. They have spikes on their heads that store toxins, layers of dermal armor that acts like chainmail, and if they get desperate, they can hibernate for years until they find a way to get revenge. So, the Arkavir. Tough, exploited, and incredibly dangerous. But they are just one flavor of changeling we're going to encounter. Next up, we have the Gyand. And if you thought the Arkavir were intimidating, these guys are straight up nightmare fuel. They are known as knife bearers, and they were created for one specific reason: entertainment. Apparently, the Celestials got so bored with their godlike existence that they decided they needed to watch something bleed. So they bioengineered the perfect gladiator. Because why not? The Gyand have 8 limbs. The bottom 4 are for skittering around like a spider, which is already creepy enough, but it's the top 2 you need to worry about. These are described as monstrous daggered clubs, and the mechanism behind them is absolutely wild. Apparently, their strike speed reaches over 200 miles per hour. Essentially, it works like a biological crossbow. But here's the crazy part. It's not a choice, it's a reflex. The Gyand have a specific lobe in their brain that constantly tracks the space around them. If anything enters their kill zone, their arms snap forward automatically, and it requires an immense amount of willpower not to strike you. The lore even mentions that when Gyand reproduce, they have to do it back to back, just so they don't accidentally decapitate their partner during the act. So to all my fellow horny gamers out there, you should probably keep your pants on for this one. Now you might think that these guys would make the perfect army, but actually they're kind of useless soldiers. If you put a Gyand on a spaceship, they will likely destroy any delicate equipment you have and murder all of your crew simply by turning too fast. So naturally, most of them end up as warlords or pit fighters where they can unleash their natural talents. But, and I love this about Exodus lore because everything has a flip side. There are Gyand who are contemplative philosophers. These are Gyand who have mastered their instincts. They live in isolated communities that are described as painstakingly polite. Imagine a society where everybody stands 6 feet apart, using sign language with their tiny secondary hands, just so nobody gets triggered and accidentally murders their neighbor. And then you have the Transcendent. These are the rare Gyand who travel the stars as bounty hunters or sheriffs. They've mastered the urge to kill, which makes them terrifyingly disciplined. And some humans even hire them to keep the peace. Because, well, nobody is going to break the law in case the sheriff is a 6 feet tall spider man that can punch a hole through a tank at 200 miles per hour. So, if you see a Gyand in Exodus, just wave at them from a distance, a very long distance. Alright, let's switch gears. We've looked at the brute force, we've looked at the martial artists, now let's look at the IT department. This is the Holosiem, and at first glance this looks like a hairless monkey that traded its soul for a terabyte of RAM. But do not let that weird spindly body fool you. These guys are arguably the most dangerous changelings in the entire cluster. You see, they are classified as data custodians. Basically, the Holosiem are living, breathing computers. They have these special organs called nanochondria that acts like 3D printers for data, and they eat heavy metals and inorganic materials to fuel these internal processors. So, while other changelings evolved to survive acid and punch through steel, the Holosiem evolved into the ultimate hackers. Meaning, if you try to fight them, they aren't going to punch you in the face, they are gonna hack that turret right next to you that will shoot you in the face. Or it'll turn off your life support, or vent the ship. So, the Holosiem, weak bodies, big brains, and they will absolutely blue screen your PC if you look at them wrong. Now, let's talk about drip. If you see a Celestial walking around with incredibly fancy jewelry, do not compliment them. And definitely do not try to steal it, because that isn't jewelry. That is a Kinesect. These are classified as ornamental shields, but I prefer to use the term bling that wants to murder you. When they aren't wrapped around a Celestial's neck or wrist, they look like these spindly golden sea spider things. They are chameleonic, meaning they can shift their color to match any outfit. Essentially, they are the perfect fashion accessory, but their actual function is pure violence. The Kinesect connects to its owner via a neural induction point, usually at the palm of your hand. So they are literally plugged into your nervous system. And because they are machines of war, they don't sleep. They are constantly watching, smelling, and listening for threats. Now, how do they fight? Well, the name Kinesect should give it away. They store kinetic energy in their limbs like coiled springs. If anybody gets too close to their master, they unleash that energy in a blur of moves. So, you could be talking to a Celestial, and before you even have the time to reach for your gun, their necklace has already injected you with neurotoxin and sliced your head off for good measure. So, the lesson here is, if the jewelry has legs, leave it the hell alone. Finally, we have the Koven. And if you thought the other changelings were weird, these things are straight out of a survival horror game. Now, the Koven aren't just one species, they are a menagerie of monsters created by the Marayama. And if you know anything about the Marayama, you know they thrive on fear and sadism. Because you see, they didn't build the Koven to be efficient workers or noble bodyguards. They built the Koven to terrify you. First, let's look at the minute Vassal. This is arguably the most messed up enemy design I have seen since Dead Space, because at a glance, and especially in the dark, this thing looks like a human child, a toddler, and that is by design. They use this appearance to trigger a hesitation reflex in humans. You see a kid, you pause, you don't pull the trigger immediately. And in that split second of hesitation, this child lunges at you with claws and oversized teeth. So, pro tip for playing Exodus: if you see a baby crawling towards you in a dark corridor, shoot it. Okay, that sounds terrible out of context, but you know what I mean. Then you have the Lobo. These are basically your grunts. The Marayama view them as minimal expenditure. Basically, they are the meat shields. They are bred to be absolutely fearless and sent in the first wave to soak up bullets so the more dangerous units can come in. They're ugly, they're fast, and there are tons of them. Next is the Jackal. These guys are fast, they hunt in packs, and they are classified as locusts. I wonder why. You see, the real danger with the Jackals is when you kill them. According to the lore, when a Jackal dies, its body undergoes a catastrophic nanotechnology cascade. Essentially, their body dissolves and transforms into a locust swarm that consumes everything nearby. So, you shoot the monster and it turns into more monsters. It's the classic "thanks, I hate it" game design. And finally, we have the Welcome Warrior. Now, that sounds nice, right? The Welcome Warrior. Sounds like a guy who greets you at the store. But no, this thing is 12 feet tall. Its arms are so long that they drag on the ground. And it has no face, just a big-ass mouth. A mouth that stretches so far that it can swallow a human whole. The welcome in their name refers to them welcoming you into their stomach. They literally consume their enemies alive on the battlefield. So, to recap the Koven, we have exploding mutants, cannon fodder beasts, baby mimics, and giant vor monsters. The Marayama clearly have some serious issues to work through, and unfortunately we are the ones who will have to deal with them. Now here's the thing, we have covered some incredible lore today, but trust me, we haven't even scratched the surface of the Changelings. There are many more Changeling species out there, and that's a whole video series in of itself. That said, if you want to keep digging into the lore with me, well, I've got plenty of Exodus deep dives coming up, so make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. And if you want to help me keep the channel running, and of course get access to exclusive content, consider joining the Patreon family. Seriously, your support there directly fuels the creation of these videos. Speaking of which, a massive shout out to all the people who make these videos possible: Ezinator, Spectre Forever, Zeramoth, Kaspar Surna, Jennifer McPhail, Vadim Orlov, and every other Patreon. This has been Mr. Holton, yesterday, today, and tomorrow.